Hey everybody, bear with me. I've been thinking a lot in the last few days about where we go from here in the aftermath of not only what happened with Charlie Kirk, which I've already addressed, but what is happening in a larger sense, not only with political violence, but our discourse, our ability to disagree with each other or lack thereof, and what it seems to me is a darkening place that the world has become. And I'll be honest right off the top of this, I just want to say that I hope this has come across to those who have followed me for a long time on this channel. I'm somebody that is typically pretty optimistic and tends to look for the best in people and wants to assume the best. And even while people around me have seen things going downhill fast, I've tried to say, well, you know what? It's happened before. We're going to be okay. And so it's really sad for me right now that I'm at the place, maybe for the first time in my adult life, where I'm not so sure I can say that. And that's difficult for me to grapple with. So I want to just kind of address some things, and I want to just let you know that there are some things that are going to be, let's say, changing about vlogging through history moving forward. I'm not saying I'm going to stop doing the regular content that I normally do. That's not changing at all. Going to continue to do reactions, going to continue to bring you history. That is what this channel is about. But as many of you know, if you followed me for a while, I've made it a point regularly to point out that I try to avoid modern topics and modern politics. And I feel like for the first time, I'm going to consciously and intentionally get away from that a little bit. I'm not going to dive into politics from the standpoint that I'm not going to start talking about specific political issues and start debating and advocating for things. That's not my intention. But I'll get to that. I'll get to all of that. I just want to first, and I made a few notes here because I typically just do this off the cuff, and it's still largely off the cuff. A lot of this was just thought up in the shower before I came up here to record. First of all, I've spent a lot of time on social media the last couple days, primarily Facebook and X, which is really where I do most of my social media. I share pictures and videos on Instagram, but I mainly interact with people on Discord, on X, and on Facebook. And I got to be honest, it's made me pretty sad. It's made me frustrated. I have felt at times over the last couple of days like I'm shooting a squirt gun at a house fire, at a forest fire. And I've realized something that I've long suspected to be true, and that's that if you spend any significant time on social media, man, you go down a dark hole. And that's why I've had to back away from it. And why for the first time since I've had this channel, I've made a conscious decision to not read every comment on a video. I've prided myself over the last 4+ years that this channel has existed on the fact that I read every single comment on every single video, and I have always done that. Even now as I approach 500,000 subscribers, I have always done that. The nearly 5,000 as of this moment comments that are on my video about the Charlie Kirk assassination that I uploaded 2 nights ago, I'm not reading. I started reading them. I got about 20 in, and it was a mix of he got what was coming to him, and the left is evil and we're at war. And that was primarily what I was seeing. And those were the ones that got past the automatic filter of YouTube. You guys don't see the stuff that YouTube filters out that I can go in and manually read and approve. In this case, not approve. It was worse. It was way worse. It was awful. And this is a community on this channel that's better than most on YouTube. That's typically pretty cordial to each other. It hurt. It was tough to watch. It was tough to read, and I stopped. And I will not be reading the comments on that video. Then I went to X, and I started interacting with people, and I realized very quickly a couple of things were happening. Number one, people are spouting off about stuff that they don't have all the facts about. They're sharing stuff because they read it somewhere, because someone told them it was true. And I know this has all been going on for a while, but this is my first real exposure to it. Nobody waits for facts anymore. We just throw stuff out there because we want it to be true. Here's the problem that I see, and it comes down to identity. There are way too many people right now in this country, in the world, but especially in this country, whose identity is primarily their political affiliation and their political beliefs. And when that's your identity, it doesn't take long before anybody who doesn't adhere to your identity becomes the enemy, becomes the problem. And when that happens, you stop listening to people that think differently than you, that say things that maybe challenge what you believe, because they're the enemy and they need to be silenced and they need to be ostracized from society. And I see a lot of that happening right now. I'm not saying we shouldn't have strong political beliefs. I'm not saying we shouldn't fight for what we believe in. But when your identity is, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, and that's first who you are, it's really difficult to function in a society with differing viewpoints. My identity, I've made no secret of that, is first and foremost that I am a Christian. Second, I am a father, and I'm an American, and I'm a human being. And because I'm a Christian, I follow Jesus Christ. And Jesus said that the two most important commandments were to love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, and the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And that, to me, trumps everything else. And because I love my neighbor as myself, that means if you are liberal, I love you. It means if you're a conservative, I love you. It means if you're neither of those, I love you. And loving you means that you can expect a certain level of common decency from me. I might completely disagree with everything that you stand for, but you'll get my respect. And your respect, it doesn't have to be earned with me. You start from a place of respect. Now, if you start saying things that I think, for example, if you start saying, you know what, Charlie Kirk got what he deserved, I won't respect that. I'll still be kind to you. I'll still show you common decency, but you have invalidated any future opinions with me until you take that back and say, you know what, I was wrong. And sometimes people do change their opinions on things, and that's okay if that happens. But you start there, right? So my identity starts with my faith in Christ, and from that identity springs everything else. Now, I'm not telling you that you have to have my identity, that you have to think like I do. As a Christian, I'd like everybody to think that way, but I recognize that's not the reality in the world in which we live. And I don't start from the standpoint that everybody must think like I do, or they're wrong, or they're the enemy, right? So I feel like, number one, I want to advocate for that. I want to advocate for the idea that there's room for differing opinions. If you're familiar with the story of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr from history, to use an analogy from history, they came to a place where they were so politically opposite and so separated in terms of their identities that it came to a duel. And Aaron Burr shot and killed Alexander Hamilton. And many years later, when he was reflecting on what had happened, and it's reflected in one of the songs in the Hamilton musical, Aaron Burr one time expressed regret over Hamilton, and he said, I should have known the world was wide enough for both Hamilton and me. And my God, if I could say anything to the world right now, it's that. The world is wide enough for people to disagree politically. And a lot of you are immediately thinking, yeah, but not so-and-so. And there's the problem. That's the problem. Yes, the world has to be wide enough for people who believe things that are abhorrent to you. There are people in this country who believe things that are abhorrent to me. I don't want them dead. I don't want them gone. I want their ideas to lose at the ballot box. I want my ideas to win because my ideas are better, not because I silenced the people who disagreed with me. And there's the difference. And yes, that includes people who are in the Klan, are Nazis, are communists, who believe in things that are abhorrent to me. I don't want them dead. I want them to lose. I want their ideas to be seen for what they are, which is so radical that people shouldn't support them. And I want my ideas to win out. That's how it should be. And so what I've experienced over the last couple of days is, and actually not just the last couple of days, but in general, because I am seen by many people as being kind of a centrist. I get a lot of criticism from people for being both sides of things, because I'm trying to see the merits of arguments on both sides, and I'm trying to point out that there are crazy, psycho, awful people on both sides. I'm not saying there are equal numbers of them, right? I'm not saying there are just as many morons over here as there are over here. I'm just saying there are morons over here and there are morons over here. There are hateful bigots over here and there are hateful bigots over here. And because of that, what happens is we get so wrapped up in our identity when it comes to politics that we see anybody who is not on our side as either the enemy because they're on the other side, or they're weak because they're in the middle and they don't take a side. And that's a problem too, is that we view people who say, like me, who say, you know what, the Democrats, they suck. The Republicans suck too. And there are things I agree with that Democrats say. Gavin Newsom has said some really good things over the last couple of days. A week ago, I probably wouldn't have said that about him. I disagree with Gavin Newsom about most things. There are people on the right that I agree with, things they say, but there are other things they say that I'm like, oh my gosh, why would he even say that, right? There are things Donald Trump has said in the last couple of days that I've agreed with, and there have been some things he's said in the last couple of days that have had me shaking my head and been like Joe Biden, and just like, shut up, man. It's possible to do that. And far too many of us think that if we even so much as acknowledge that somebody on the other side made a good point, that we're being weak and we're betraying our people and our identity. No, that's the problem, because we've made politics the end-all be-all to everything. And it makes it impossible for us to be friends with the other side, to agree with the other side. I've had people tell me in the last couple of days, because I mentioned in my last video that my daughter knew who Charlie Kirk was. That was what I said. Like, that my daughter, being of that generation, well, she was familiar with Charlie Kirk. And I had people immediately tell me that I was a bad father because I let my 20-year-old daughter listen to Charlie Kirk. Number one, I never said she listened to him. In fact, she doesn't like him particularly, and she's fairly liberal when it comes to her politics. But that's what people do. They hear something, and then they immediately jump to conclusions. They immediately spout off because they're predisposed to their viewpoint, and anything that might challenge that, oh man, right? So this morning, they announced that they had arrested the suspect in the Charlie Kirk thing. And immediately I saw people posting, oh yeah, he's actually a gun-toting Republican. And then other people were like, no, he's a registered member of the Communist Party. And oh, he donated money to Donald Trump 5 years ago. And stop. Just let this marinate for 5 minutes. Let facts come out. Let's stop with the speculation. Let's stop with the, oh, look, there's the proof that he's not one of us, he's one of you. You're the problem. That's what we want to do. We latch on to anything because we're so wrapped up in our identity. So I share all of that to say that, number one, I'm taking a step back from social media because it's a dark, evil, vile place. And I think the governor of Utah said it best today when he said, listen, social media is a cesspool. Get out of there. Go hug your kids. Go hug your family. Touch grass. He actually said touch grass, right? That's what I'm doing. I'm going to ground myself in reality. I'm going to connect with my friends in real life. I'm going to get off. I live on a loud street. I'm going to get off of social media for a while. I'm taking a step back because it was taking me down a dark place. So, man, hug your families. Spend time with your loved ones. And you know what? Listen to people who think differently than you. Get out of your echo chambers. Be challenged by people who think differently than you. Allow yourself the great benefit that comes in life from acknowledging that maybe you're not always right. And that maybe only people who think just like you aren't always right. Do you know what? There were a lot of things that Charlie Kirk said that I agree with. There were some things Charlie Kirk said that I thought were awful. There are a lot of things that Gavin Newsom says that I disagree with. There are some things he says that I agree with. And that's true for most people. There are people I agree with more than others. But in most people, I think you can find some common ground if you choose to look for it. And so I say all of that to say, you know what? From now on, moving forward with vlogging through history, it's still going to be primarily, first and foremost, about history. But expect more of this from me. And I hope that's okay. And I'm very disappointed to see that my friend JD over on the History Underground, who does way less of this than I do, uploaded a video the same night that I did and kind of addressed a little bit of the Charlie Kirk stuff. And he lost a bunch of subscribers. And let me just tell you, JD is a good friend of mine. I've spent a lot of time with him. JD is way more tolerant and way more kind and gracious to people who think differently than him than I am. And I think most of you would agree that I'm pretty tolerant and accepting and welcoming of people who think differently than me. And he's more so. And he was losing subscribers over this. And that is just something I cannot fathom. And that's a world that I just can't fathom. And so, you know what? I recognize that some of you might not be around for this kind of thing. And that's okay. You don't have to watch these videos. If you just want to watch my history stuff, please do. That's 99% of what you're going to see on this channel. And when you see stuff like this right now, just skip past it. That's okay. The world's wide enough for people who only want to see the history and don't want to hear me rant about identities and politics and social media. And my gosh, can we just take a step back, as I said before? Stop hating each other who think differently than us and stop labeling people. Because when we label people on the other side who think differently than us as the enemy, as a threat, young, impressionable minds hear that and think, I will remove that threat. And that's how things like this end up happening. Left, right, center, wherever it is. So listen, the person who took Charlie Kirk's life is fully responsible for his actions. I'm not saying anybody else is to blame for it, but when we use that extremist rhetoric, we push people in that direction. And that needs to stop. So moving forward, I'm going to do my best to try and pull people back here and there as I'm able to. I hope you can be okay with that. Thanks for listening.